The opinions expressed in the following are those of its participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the producers and the Six Talk Podcast Network. Also, the following contains mature material and mild language, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Discretion is advised.
This is the Anime Roundtable Canada, presented by Anime North. On the Sunday evening, October the 16th, 2022, you can contact us online on the web, animeroundtable.com, Twitter and Instagram @Anime Roundtable, and email us, animeroundtable@gmail.com. We're halfway through October, and this is our first thing of the month. So at least we were halfway through the quota for the month as well. It took a little bit to put together a group around the virtual table to do the episode, but we got somebody this week, or a few people. Mike Nicholas at 6 points. We're doing this remotely, so Amy Lynn Gregg, Mohammed Shamarki, Kevin Ng, they're around the table tonight from wherever they choose to be. James Austin chooses not to be here tonight. We're not doing attendance. Don't worry, we won't do the attendance gag. But this was a bit last second. He's entitled to enjoy the weekend too. And we'll, of course, get his opinion on some of the stuff we'll talk about later when he returns, surely. Next time. Amy, how's the first couple weeks of work been?
Chaotic to say the least. It's been, I guess, over a month now. I started on September, I guess, the 8th or so. So yeah, it's been, lots of up and downs, working out as a trans woman for the first time, some drama inherent in that. Casual observations, which is relevant to this show, that I will maybe revisit in a few minutes or an hour. I think that the world, or at least North America, has underestimated Naruto's popularity and cultural impact. I'm almost willing to say now, at least in North America or Canada, I would say it has a greater impact than Dragon Ball, at least as far as like staying power. And that, I think it relates to, I don't know if it was the last episode or the episode before, when you were talking about like eras, how different things were sort of in the early aughts and late 90s. And, I have a whole lot of thoughts on that, so maybe I'll keep it for now. But yeah, kids are still very into Naruto specifically, not Boruto.
Like we've had versions of this conversation with various titles, and okay, we can flesh that out another time, because there's another one of those philosophical discussions we're going to have a bit later on. But as you brought that up, I was thinking about the dynamic between Berserk, or the link between Berserk and Fist of the North Star with Miura having had association. Obviously being the creator of Berserk, but then also working under the creators of Fist of the North Star, right? And remember when we talked about his passing at Anime North Online, the stay-at-home edition, that's the exact word, I think. I talked a little bit about why was Berserk the one that really influenced a lot of the more hyper-violent titles that would come in the immediate years after it, and maybe immediate decades too. When Fist of the North Star could have been it. What was the difference? And I made the I gave the thought, or my belief was always, it was the time it came out. Because Fist of the North Star was a thing in the 80s, but Berserk became a thing in the 90s and was able to start to catch that, pretty much catch that that wave, that of, that the new generation of anime fans. Well, the generations have changed again, but I think the first big wave of fandom, or at least the big wave that has led to the size of the anime fandom that it is today. So Fist of the North Star could have started the spark, or could have been the spark, but really the fire was started with Berserk. And I think that's when you talk about Bleach and Dragon Ball. I mean, Dragon Ball was a thing to people of closer to, mine and James's age. But the more active fans today, the most vocal, for better or worse, fans that are out there are much younger. The ones in their teens, 20s, maybe early 30s. And they're the ones that grew up on and really, they were impacted more directly by something like Naruto. That was their thing. And there's more of them that were into that thing.
I mean, I personally just see it as a pre-internet, post-internet sort of situation.
Yeah, and I think that's the spark I was trying to refer to. I couldn't find exactly where that wave, how to define that wave, Mo. So I think you might have just hit it on the head. It was an internet thing, right? So going back to the whole Fist of the North Star Berserk thing, Fist of the North Star was pre-internet and Berserk was post-internet. And you can almost use a similar argument with Naruto and Dragon Ball, but maybe move that timeline a little forward to a more key point, at least in terms of our internet consumption. Maybe from internet just being a place you can browse the web to internet being something you can enjoy videos online. Not necessarily streaming. That was still probably some years away. But the whole idea of consuming entertainment online kind of correlates with Naruto.
I do think
like BitTorrent and stuff.
I do think that the internet has like a huge, part to play there. But it's like what is kind of surprising me, and I get like a lot of this is availability and sort of how much variety of anime series exists today, or throughout the last 10, 20 years. But with the internet, we have access to like the history of anime at this point. And I'm so impressed with Naruto specifically because, the grade 9 students who are still loving Naruto, this series would have started coming out when I was sort of in grade 7 and 8. So like, basically from right when they were born or like right before. And I think like, okay, how many early 80s, shows did I purposefully go back and check out? And the answer is probably zero. The early 80s shows that I ended up seeing were Dragon Ball Z, but because of the timeline, that didn't really come out until the 90s here. And I didn't purposefully seek it out. It was just sort of on TV. So like I feel like, again, this is maybe a whole other, conversation, but like, I'm so fascinated with like, what is it about Naruto specifically that it's attracting people like, kids, early teens that aren't the traditional anime nerds. Like they're the ones who are into, Chainsaw Man coming out, they're excited, and Hero Academia and all that kind of stuff. But Naruto has this like pan, cultural, like weird,
Almost generational.
yeah, and like vortex that's like attracting people who have like, I have, students who are way too cool for like school or nerdy things. but they're drawing like Itachi's headband on their like folder. Like it's so weird.
Yes or no? Yes or no? Since you're talking about the whole, maybe Naruto is quasi mainstream. Maybe mainstream might be overstating it, but certainly very across the board for its age group.
Oh, I'd say it's mainstream now.
Okay.
You see
Yes
all that
or no?
merchandise at Hot Topic, at GameStop, EB Games, Walmart. When
Well,
you
here's my
see
yes.
Naruto posters at Walmart, you're not niche.
Oh, yeah. Well, beside the Princess Mononoke one. Yes or no? Naruto is to this generation that, and this is ultimately the titles are apples and oranges titles. But I want to at least illustrate the impact it has on, the way fandom is, or on what it did for fandom as a whole. Naruto is to just this generation, i.e., the grade 9s, the tweens and teens, as Sailor Moon could have been to people in that age group in the 90s. Could it have been? Is it a yes, no? Is it exclusively yes, no, or there's just other nuances we have to look at there?
I think there's other nuances. It's interesting because like when you were, hyping up your question of yes, no, my mind was turning. It's like, oh, what is Mike going to say? And my main two thoughts had nothing to do with anime. They were actually like Star Wars and Marvel. Because I remember, when I was sort of a kid, maybe younger than grade 9, maybe more like 11 or 12, there was this like huge interest in Star Wars even before Episode 1 came out. And also like, Marvel, with the 90s X-Men, I guess, like there was like this mini surgence in popularity of that kind of thing. And the only reason why I'm hesitant to say yes on the Sailor Moon thing is because, yeah, there was some degree of years separation. When I guess Sailor Moon aired maybe 5 years after Japan or something like that. But it's still so striking to me that it's like a full generation, like a full 15, 16 years. And they're discovering it and absorbing it at a rate like more than a lot of current anime and media. Like that's the surprising thing for me.
Okay. So maybe it is really, the whole thing could be an apples and oranges thing. To both our listeners out there, come on, give me a thought.
I think it's just that, well, we don't have TV. We don't have Naruto playing on Canadian TV anymore, but
how relevant is that these days?
Not debatable. I'd say not really, but that's from my uneducated opinion.
Well, yeah, well, anything we say is all anecdotal, but I think that's part of the whole, like that's another branch of the cord cutting debate, right? There isn't any must-see TV unless it's sports. By the way, hey Siri, what's the score in the Bills game?
They're up by 7.
According to this, it's tied. Okay.
No, they're up by 7. It's 17-10.
No, it says here 17-17 now.
Okay, come on.
Okay, anyway. They're playing the Chiefs anyway. But, okay, Quantum Leap has rebooted. I know I can watch...
okay, is anyone watching that?
No, no. My father was a Quantum Leap fan, just for reference.
So I watched the first episode, and it was fine. It was an update to the concept. They have like a half Bones CSI sitcom going on at the same time as the Quantum Leap adventures. But aside from that, like first episode, he jumps into like a part-time, or like, I don't want to spoil the episode, but it's like a part-time. A crime story, essentially, like a robbery story. Second
Okay.
episode, jumps into an astronaut, really cool. Third episode, it's a boxer, and coming off the astronaut, I was like so bored with just the premise of a boxer that I made it like 5 minutes and watched old Star Trek again after instead.
See,
The fourth one, he's a bounty hunter
Okay, that's cool, but
in the 80s.
see. Well, the promos also hinted he'd leap into Joe Montana, Joe Montana at some point. Sorry,
I'd never seen the original, so this was like out of left field, but I'm really enjoying it.
So my father had watches old reruns of the show. It had a pretty cool theme song too, the original.
Like, this show can go on forever. It's great.
I want them to bring back Sliders instead. Sliders was
Oh,
far
true.
more silly
Okay.
and
No, I understand that. I never watched it, but I knew of its cult popularity.
the multiverse is hot right now.
Can't go wrong with that.
Okay. All right, so let's reel back for a couple seconds and
Oh, was it for me? Naruto won't get that popularity until it gets Macy's Day Parade.
that's your version of the sign
And
that you
Goku's
made.
got one. Pikachu got one. Where's Naruto?
Oh, that's a fair point.
Maybe he has and you don't know.
Oh no, I looked it up.
I think
Okay.
it's a ninja joke.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
always been a Naruto float. He's just using like some sort of, anytime you see a tree stump on the side, it's actually the Naruto float.
Okay, so quickly, from one show from that generation to another, let's talk about this headline because I don't think we talked about it a couple weeks ago because it was still a little bit away from being officially announced. Bleach, 1,000 Years War debuted
Tuesday
over the last week or so, right? Tuesday was?
or Wednesday, one of those days.
Okay. Yeah. And everybody figured, I think people saw it coming right down Dixon Avenue or Dixon Road, that Disney Plus would get Naruto. I mean, each. And then there's the usual amount of backlash that went with it. People are already saying, is Disney Plus here, Hulu in the States, and people were pissed off, or at least those that were really pissed off really made it known, wanting to go back to pirating. And ironically, according to one article, the first episode of 1,000 Years War was already on a BitTorrent just the day before its official release on Hulu and Disney.
Yeah, there's no stopping that. But as a Disney subscriber, I appreciate it being on Disney Plus.
And you were the Bleach fan. Like, you're the resident Bleach guy.
I mean, I think Kevin's more of a fan than I am.
Okay, Kevin. Oh wait, did you torrent it?
I didn't watch it yet.
Okay, cool.
Is it not on Disney Plus? I wasn't paying attention for.
It is now on Disney Plus. The first episode is now on Disney Plus, and they'll release it as it comes out, as it properly comes out, I guess, weekly.
Good.
So,
and apparently it's uncensored, unless I'm misinformed.
That's the other part. It sounds like it is.
Wait, there's gonna be a censored version?
No, it's just that because it's Disney, there's always that thought of maybe they could. Even though I know Disney does have, like, they have plenty of violent things on there.
So, first impression, Mohammed. What did you? Did you like it?
I like
just.
Yeah.
What do you make of it compared to the
better animation?
When was the last time the anime?
I mean, I hadn't finished it all, and I haven't read the manga either. So to me, this is all new. But I liked it. They start off strong, bad guy, then you get the good guys, and then some fighting, and then the episode ends. It's great.
Okay. Anyone else want to say anything, or should I just make my smarmy comment about Disney Plus right now?
So what's I'm I think I feel like I've missed something. Why was it super obvious that Bleach would go to Disney Plus?
I think it just seemed so like that seemed to be the buzz in the month leading up to the announcement.
Yeah,
Everybody,
I think it was
Sorry?
leaked. There were rumors that had basically confirmed, yes, they obtained it. So it more or less just became like an unconfirmed, not a hidden secret, but it was basically confirmed. It's just that there were no official announcements made.
Is there any connection between Disney and Bleach though, or is it just like a Disney like bought a random anime series to show?
That's basically it.
I think they just determined that, okay, this thing's popular, let's put it on our service. That's how I would imagine it being the case.
Yeah, I think that's really it. I mean, remember the rights outside of Asia belong to Viz. They don't have a service of their own, so they basically put it up for bids.
It could have easily have been Netflix.
Could have easily been Crunchyroll. Naruto. On that note, is that leaving any of the major services?
I think it left Netflix.
Huh?
I think it's leaving Netflix.
Okay. So that's basically what happened. They just won a bidding war. And people were worried about how they'd handle it. And for reference, people were wondering, what about the original seasons? They're not up there. Disney does have the rights to those now, too, for their services. And that's apparently set to come online around October 26th. Mileage may vary depending on where you are. So and remember, I went on this whole bit last episode that there were like some live action Japanese dramas from Nippon Television that I was interested in, but they're not available on Disney Plus Canada. So once again, your mileage may vary depending on where you are. Which leads me to, Disney Plus Day and the free, or not free, but the $2 offer for the month. Right? And I mentioned I'd do it, right, Kevin? On the bright side, no taxes. It was $1.99 for the month.
Oh, okay.
And taxes would probably only bring it up to $1.26 to $2.26 or something like that. That freebie offer or cheap offer will expire in 3 days on Thursday, on the 19th. And so out of the entire time I've had it, maybe it won't surprise you I hardly watched anything, but I did watch something. And it almost made it worth the $2.
Was it Bleach?
And you know what it was?
Was it Bleach?
No, but I will watch that before. I will make it a point to watch it now before I cancel. Because, I don't want to find myself paying for the month. No, it was the trailer to Wakanda Forever, the next, the sequel to Black Panther.
I do like how they do that. Put trailers up.
Yeah, that 2 minutes.
Good trailer.
Almost made it worth the $2. At least I don't feel as bad about it right now. Not that I was going to in the first place. But that's the only thing I've watched from beginning to end. Mind you, with the way my schedule is these days, I can only let myself sit down and watch so much. Maybe in that sense, I miss the pandemic. I mean, the dust cover is still on the PS5 after all. So that's the extent of my watching to this point. And I know there's probably some really good stuff on Disney Plus. I just won't get the time to do it, so I can't justify keeping it. So that's why I have to cancel. Right?
I feel you, Mike. I feel the same way about Netflix.
No, yeah. Well, when you did that, right?
And then they come back with that ad tier. I'm like, come on.
Oh yeah, the ad tier was announced this week. I think it's like $5.99 or something?
Like $6, and it's like in standard definition. It's dumb.
Oh yeah, that it's that, right? So there's that. And for reference, I know that what is it? I know that Urusei Yatsura premiered on HiDive within the last couple weeks. I think this week. Although don't quote me, I haven't totally kept up. I know that premiered, and I looked through the HiDive catalog. I think it's like $5 a month or something American for it. It's not the biggest looking catalog, but depending on what could happen in the next little bit and who gets what, maybe it's worth a look. Some AMC properties or some AMC branding is now starting to make itself obvious there too, right? So, yeah. But there's there's my my bit. I'm just looking at a few things here, and then I don't know what else to add really. I mean, on the other side of the ledger, in terms of other services, I mentioned to you guys I finally finished Kaguya-sama Love is War. I finished the 3rd season earlier this week. Pat myself on the back on that.
How'd you find it?
I'm wondering, first of all, story-wise, it was compelling enough. You know I can be a sucker for those type of stories, Kevin. I think most of you, everybody knows. I mean, for all the years all of you have known me, you know I can be a sucker for that. If I rank shows like Kimagure Orange Road and Maison Koku in my top 5, you know I could probably be a sucker for something like Kaguya-sama.
I can be as well.
But it was a fun watch, masterpiece. Not totally sure, but certainly time well spent. But there's also a part of me wondering how much of the animation budget was put just into that last episode, because the animation felt a lot more smoother and crisper in that last episode. It's just the feel of that last episode felt so different, and it isn't necessarily because of the way the plot had gotten to that point. But it's just the visuals. Just the visuals. I just thought I'd have to say that. Right? So, yeah, that's that. And I'll try and watch. With that done, maybe I'll try and watch Spy X Family. Maybe I'll try and spend a little bit of time watching Cyberpunk.
Oh, you haven't seen
Runners? I haven't had a chance to continue watching that.
Good.
Sure, there's still more Demon Slayer stuff I have to watch, and let's see how many years down the road how many years down the road will Demon Slayer end up in that same stratosphere as something like Naruto?
I mean, I'm guessing like
probably not
2 cycles, maybe.
Maybe, I don't know. It would probably have to run for a long time. See, where's One Piece in this conversation?
Oh, it's out.
One Piece is in Japan.
Yeah, there you go.
One Piece is in Japan. That's probably it. That's probably the right answer. So there's all that type of stuff. But I thought I'd at least mention that. Well, just quickly, what's on the queues for you guys?
Chainsaw Man.
Oh, how is that?
Great.
Or you're just where's that running right now? Just out of curiosity.
I believe Crunchyroll.
Okay, so
I'm pretty sure it's Crunchyroll as well.
Yeah.
Yes, you're watching Chainsaw Man, but not necessarily on Crunchyroll, are you, Mo?
No. I got that membership and everything.
I thought I'd ask.
I can't have all the memberships, man. Come on.
Any word if Chainsaw Man is getting a dub anytime soon-ish?
Good question. Not sure.
Did they not confirm a dub for it? I'd be shocked if it didn't get one. But yeah, usually Funimation would be on top of that, at least by maybe week 2 or 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, now it is just all Crunchyroll, but I digress.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can, as I said, we'll have that further Crunchyroll talk a little later on, right? Or do you want to start that part of our conversation now?
We could. I guess in terms of my personal queue, though,
I forgot. Yes, personal queue, because you mentioned you want to watch it.
I want to watch Bleach and Chainsaw Man. We'll see if I get around to it. I'm gonna try, but knowing how I am, it could just fall off to the wayside.
Well, what is priority right now, then?
Let's see. I have Hellsing to finish reading. And I need to read... What was that? Was it Kobato I need to read? I think I have to read Kobato as well. By Clamp. A couple other things that I can't think of off the top of my head as well.
Well, that's fine then. I mean, I think your queue is way more active than mine at this stage. Right? I mean, okay, going back to my own impressions of the ending of Kaguya-sama, it felt like a good ending. If you chose not to watch any more of the story, you can, at least the way it ended, says, okay, that's a good way to end it. But there's more to the story.
Did all those new characters show up yet? Because I know there's just a bunch of new people that show up later on in the series, because I'm still way back in season 1 or like volume 4 or 5 of the manga, where none of those people are there yet.
What characters are you thinking, though?
They're mostly girls.
Short answer is a few others were introduced, but not more in the background. I mean, Lino is Lino. Is that her name?
I don't know their names at all, even.
Okay. But they introduced at least 2 others, who one of them ended up on the student council.
Oh, interesting. I think there was like a brunette that got introduced.
Might be her.
Oh, okay.
I mean, some of the names escape me right now, because I'm not always good at knowing those type of names. A few characters were introduced, a few characters were hinted.
Okay.
And that they could probably figure in more later on.
Well, at least with Kaguya, the end is in sight. The manga's ending is in sight, so...
Well, didn't they announce it'll end?
Yeah.
Within a year?
I don't think there'll be more than another 1 or 2 seasons of the anime at this point.
Well, I was under the impression the anime was done. It was all but done, aside from a feature film I think that's coming out.
Oh, really? Because I just feel like...
It ended.
I feel like they will just adapt the entire manga at this point.
Well, I mean, it's popular enough they could. And it would do fine.
Indeed.
Oh, I mean,
I'm so far behind on Kaguya-sama. I do really like that series too.
Yeah, I like it too, but and then assuming maybe another live action movie and maybe another season, and hopefully the people involved in it are better paid. On that segue.
Well, I haven't listed my stuff yet.
Oh, sorry. Okay, Amy.
So, I guess I'll stick to Japanese origin animation stuff. Only really 2 things. I am interested in Cyberpunk and eventually Chainsaw Man. I generally like to watch dubs, so I might wait. But the dub of Overlord 4 finished. So for those uninitiated, Overlord is an isekai, big skeleton, lich, wizard guy.
Daddy.
A random, standard, Japanese young person is stuck in him. The premise goes from being dropped to being picked up about every 5 minutes of the demon or the evil personality sort of taking over, or the human giving in. But season 4 or series 4, whatever you want to call it, continues Overlord's very weird I guess, premise or function of basically every 2 episodes introducing a really interesting twist or like new plot element, and then the very next episode the characters go, "Oh, hey, that was cool, I guess," and then they just move on to something else. But it keeps going into a loop, like something that completely breaks the series and like potentially introduces like, you know, some really like plot like relevant changes and like things that could shift happen at about halfway through the season, and then literally the next episode the main character is basically watching it on a crystal ball TV and goes, "Huh, that's interesting," and then they move on to other stuff. It's so weird, but because they keep doing that every 2 episodes, it remains like frustratingly compelling. Anyway,
that's an interesting contradiction in terms. I like it.
So that, I guess, season finished. It said, I think the beginning of the end at the end of the credits or something. So maybe there's only 1 season left. And then the other series that I tried to watch was JoJo Part 6, Part 2. And because of Netflix jail, like when Part 1 came out, oh cool, new JoJo. I liked Part 4 a lot. I liked Part 5 somewhat. So, you know, Part 6, let's, you know, see what happens with women JoJo. And yeah, I liked it. Probably more than 5, I guess. 5 is weird. But, you know, I watched Part 6, very awkward first 10 minutes, but aside from that, fun first 13 or whatever episodes. And then Netflix decided, okay, we'll wake us up with more JoJo. And then, like, there wasn't any episodes for, like, half a year or something. That might be an exaggeration. But they came out, like, in early September, and, like, I just started getting to them a few weeks ago. And I only got like 4 episodes in. Like the momentum was completely killed for me. I'll still probably watch them eventually. But whenever I turn on Netflix, like, you know, I could watch more JoJo, but then I see like the cool poster for Cyberpunk, and then I realize, oh, I haven't seen the first season of Deep Space Nine yet. So I do that instead of the other 2. So Netflix is frustrating. JoJo, or whatever they do to JoJo, is frustrating. Worse treatment than even Shaman King got, I think.
Wow.
But yeah, those. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree in that with the way Netflix released JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stone Ocean, it killed the hype for JoJo at this time. This is why anime should be played once a week as it debuts in Japan. Because you don't have people talking about it as much when it's all out at once.
So that's your argument against binging.
This has been discussed in the podcast before, and recently.
Rehash your version again.
Oh, you want me to I already rehashed it just now.
Yeah. And like to that point, like Overlord would have just been dumb without watching it week to week. Like it would have just been like, oh, crazy plot twist, and never mind. Crazy plot twist, never mind. Like over and over again, if you were binging it, at least week to week, there's like this excitement that I then get let down on, and then at the end of the episode, more excitement. Like there's a flow there.
It sounds like a frustrating flow.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like it's going from painful to excruciating.
It's a very like, I don't know how to describe it, especially in terms of quality. Like, I'm fascinated by it. Anyways,
It's a good way to put it. That's a funny way to put it.
You wanted to talk about Crunchyroll again?
Well, we like bashing them, I guess, in many respects. Okay, do you have a take? I know that whole bit on the dubbing controversy with, what's his name again? Kyle McCarley. When we talked at length about him being, not returning to his role on Mob Psycho 100. I know that it sounded like you want to say quite a bit about that.
Yeah.
And there's been a follow-up since. There's a couple of things that have come out on the topic since, and we'll outline those.
Yeah, so like I guess I'll stick to like the information that was at least available as of your last recording. And I had been following it, prior to that. It is very sad. I'm a big fan of Mob Psycho 100. I think it's probably in my top 10, if not top 5, of the last 5-10 years or so. Like it is a remarkable series. It has a remarkable dub. The main, I think, sad point here is that Mob's voice was fairly unique. So I am curious to see the replacement, I guess, to see if they find a sound alike, if it's really different. That's just like from a fan of the series, fan of dubs, like curiosity angle. Not sure if Reagan or the other cast have been recast. Reagan is probably the only other character of note, unfortunately, that people would probably miss. Yeah, so in response to what happened, I think it's a huge shame. My main takeaway is that this is probably a curse of Mob Psycho 100 being a B tier series. If My Hero Academia had the same situation with its main character, there is, I think, no way it would have been recast. I mean, the new season isn't out yet, so I might be eating crow in a couple weeks. But I think that, Mob Psycho, it doesn't get movies in movie theaters that are dubbed. My Hero Academia does.
Hey, Mike, what's that saying you say all the time?
It's something not important. I am very upset at that saying. But yeah, we'll get to the content of that saying several times this episode, I'm sure. But yeah, as far as the series itself, and I think it's sad. I think it's again sort of the curse of being a B tier series. People will be upset, but it doesn't have the as Kevin was saying earlier, it doesn't have the posters in Walmart that Hiroaka does. So I think Crunchyroll feels that they can get away with this a little bit easier. One takeaway from your actual conversation was the implication that anime voice actors will just retreat to the video game world for safety. Please tell that to the cast of BlazBlue when they just decided not to dub the final game.
What? Really? Wow.
The final game in the BlazBlue series, they're just like, let's not dub it, even though every other game prior to that was dubbed, and the weird crossover featuring Ruby and whatever, Persona for some reason, was dubbed. So the final narrative arc in BlazBlue, and the writer of BlazBlue has left the company, so the final ever BlazBlue doesn't have an English dub. It had an amazing English dub. They dubbed everything, the little bonus content, all the little, it's a visual novel with a fighting game grafted onto it. So, it had such an elaborate dub, fantastic voice cast, and they just decided not to dub it. And all the, actors were, preparing, because they knew the game was coming out. They were like, oh, cool, we get to go back to it. And then they're like, oh, yeah, no dub this time. So that could happen. Also, the controversy... Yeah, the controversy with Bayonetta this week. So
I knew we'd have to bring up Bayonetta in that same breath. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Platinum, Nintendo, Sega, whoever you want to blame, offering to pay the original voice actor $4,000 for the entire game. Haha, that's a joke. We'll maybe get into that a little bit, but I do want to just bring up. Video games aren't a safe haven. Voice actors are the bottom rungs of the theater / dramatic arts world for some reason, probably below commercials. With Super Smash Brothers, I've maybe mentioned this in the past, but Anthony Del Rio, the voice actor for Pit and Dark Pit in Smash Brothers, goes uncredited from Wii U onward.
That's been well known.
Yeah, because
I guess
Yeah, because Nintendo doesn't want to work with unions. So Anthony Del Rio is a union actor, so they're like, okay, we're going to recast you because you're union. And he's like, no, it's okay. I'll do it. Pay me. I'll just go uncredited. And this is why Cloud only has a Japanese voice in Smash Brothers, because at the time, the voice actor for Cloud was, firmly within the union, and his specific contract said, you are the only person who can do an English voice for Cloud, and you need to be credited. So, because of that, the options were, you don't get an English voice for Cloud in this game. That's it.
That's not an option. That's just it.
Exactly.
I didn't know this. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, options is to say there's two.
Yeah.
It can go a couple, okay.
There are other actors in that game. I think I really love Kid Icarus Uprising, but Lucina's voice actress as well. So, and this is a bit of a tangent, but all the controversy and not controversy, but talk about, why isn't Charles Martinet or Martinet the voice of Mario in the Mario movie?
Well, I was about to bring up the trailer anyway. So.
Yeah, and the only voice actor is Kevin Michael Richardson, who's playing Kamek. Awesome voice from the trailer. But he's a stage and screen actor anyways. But, the reason for that is your famous saying. This happened before Scooby-Doo movies, let's recast, everyone but Scooby-Doo, even though Scooby-Doo's voice actor plays Freddy. Voice actors are continuously screwed, probably unless you're Mark Hamill or Kevin Conroy, and even then they're probably not. Or there are, some prominent voice actors, Rob Paulson,
that already had their money in Mark Hamill's case.
See, but these younger anime video game voice actors, there's no protection for them. I totally get why they're trying to strengthen themselves with the unions, because they're constantly getting screwed over.
Okay, going back to that part of the conversation then. Would you put this as a product of, the voice acting segment of acting is in a young enough stage, it hasn't matured enough, it hasn't evolved enough that it could go under a union, because theater, movie, television, that's had a decades long, those have all had decades long head starts. And in comparison, the voice acting world, especially when it comes to anime and video games, isn't nearly as old. Probably not even a quarter as old. That could be a highball. Is this one of those things where, okay, there's still a lot of chaos within it. It hasn't had a time to really set its roots firmly into the ground, and make it and show itself as that viable? Or is it because, the companies are just trying to make sure to disturb it and try and prevent those roots from ever setting?
Well, there've been anime and game voice acting for decades, and I get the impression that a lot of these people have, been in unions at least for years at this point. I think, and this is just complete speculation right now, that I'm making based off of your comments and on the episode last time, but I think part of the issue is that voice acting is such an attractive career for a lot of young people.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of new voice actors come from the fandom, scene. They come from watching, dubbed anime on Toonami or YTV, and they get into this industry, and there are so many talented voice actors that some of them go to the union, some of them go to non-union, some of them are in Texas, some of them are just in California, like all the other regular live action actors. Some of them are here in Toronto doing local Nelvana stuff. And the whatever Beyblade equivalent is going on now. And there are others in Vancouver still. So there are so many voice actors that they can work with that companies have the choice. Do we want to do union? Yes, no, okay. And there are plenty to go around that do have talent. And because there are relatively, there's going to be a stink if people get recast, but how many of those legacy, like how many of these Mob Psycho controversies are there going to be like in any given year? Probably not that many.
I think the closest is probably lies with the wrong person.
Yeah.
As in he whose name we probably shouldn't say too much of.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's the only name I could think of right now. At least, well, remember I said Steve Blum as well, but when it comes to Spike,
it was like a 3-line role, but Brawley was newly voiced in the latest DBZ movie. No one noticed or cared. Cool. At least I think most people, I'm sure, his fandom cared, but I don't think that accounts to like a huge Dragon Ball audience crossover.
Oh, he did reprise his role?
No, he didn't, but like, if he did, I don't think there would have been a huge, either way.
Okay.
I don't think his voice is as synonymous with Brawley as it is with, the FMA bro.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I don't know what else to add to that. I mean, okay, let me put it this way. Do you think this is a case of big companies knowing that there's lots of quantity and quality in that quantity, and it's young and easy to exploit?
Yeah.
Because I mean that which leads me into that argument again. Because of all that talent being so young, so naive, or
just desperate
in chaos at this point. Yeah, and so in chaos and desperate at this point, not having that chance to set their roots, to know. Well, they're knowing that they can do better, but not knowing those avenues.
I mean, but
not getting familiar with those avenues.
Because
so let's not
go, Mo.
I was gonna say, because this could blow up real bad,
For who?
The companies.
Right. And so this is the companies trying to squash it before it has a chance to grow.
I agree, but I feel like depending on the show, right?
This could be testing the waters. Maybe they were planning to do this for My Hero Academia, and they're like, let's test it on a popular show, but nothing too popular, and see what happens.
So you don't think, like, okay, let's see them get away with this with Bleach. Well, give me the most popular anime that in terms of its dub cast. And My Hero, you think it's My Hero?
Yeah.
Right now, yes.
And you think they can't get away with that?
No.
Not with principal characters.
Yeah.
So like Midoriya,
Bakugo,
hot cold guy, Todoroki.
Yeah.
So like those core 3 gonna be in the movie characters, probably Sue and Uraraka, like these, but like recasting Tailman, sure, I guess, like it would suck for Tailman, but like I don't think people would know. Mineta, everyone hates him, so like whatever. But like those sort of core 5 or 6 characters, I think would be risky, especially those core 3.
Yeah,
I mean, like, if they did,
I can only the only other people I could think. Sorry, what?
Like the teachers,
I think All Might and
and
I think who's the black-haired guy that uses shadows?
Eraserhead?
Yes, Eraserhead is probably safer.
Yeah, like All Might specifically, I know this is a very Canadian thing, but whenever I hear the Food Basics ad, I just think of All Might. Like it's a very similar voice. I can't listen to that Food Basics ad without hearing All Might.
Mind you, the No Frills ads probably have more in common with anime, at least some of the more recent ones. I mean, I know Dave Merrill thinks that if some of the No Frills ads ends up in anime hell.
Though, yeah.
Galen, pay those people more. Those are good marketing campaigns.
Okay. Just from all of this, the one other thing I just want to say before we move on is Mark Hamill played Majima in Yakuza. The first Yakuza back on PS2, I think it was dubbed at the time, and Mark Hamill played Majima. And that's the only English dub ever given to any Yakuza game or Like a Dragon game.
Really?
Right up until number 7.
Okay.
Because where they really started to focus on the English.
Wouldn't it be 6?
Huh?
Wouldn't it be 6?
Pardon me. Yeah. Wait. No, that was Song of Life. That was the last one with Kiryu. No, it's the 7th edition.
Yeah.
So like a Dragon.
They dubbed 6, didn't they?
No, they didn't.
Really? Oh.
No, they didn't. They didn't. So, so I would have been curious to see how Mark Hamill could have handled Majima as he was in Yakuza 0. Just for reference. I thought that would have been a really interesting turnaround because of the way the character is first introduced and what he goes through in 0. Right? And they follow that up in Kiwami 2, I heard. In some form. I've yet to start playing it, but I'm well aware of it. Okay, so Kyle McCarley in the weeks since we did episode, this is episode 72 now. So in episode 71, when we did that 3 weeks ago, he has spoken with Anime News Network, or more specifically, and I want to make sure I get give credit where this is due, with the Cartoon Cipher. And he said a bunch of interesting things. It sounded like just to clear the air, just to clarify some of the things, at least his side, the way his side of the story, and some of the timeline, and some of what he was going for. I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me, and I just skimmed the article. I'll probably do a longer read of it. And James gave us this a couple weeks ago, around the time it actually happened. I think the biggest takeaway I got was he wasn't necessarily looking to become unionized for Mob Psycho itself. And he wasn't necessarily trying to ensure that completely for the future, not like take it or leave it. But the constant phrase I keep hearing in this interview was just a meeting. Just a conversation. And he goes on to say, people say, well, what good is a boycott? Like he keeps hearing, okay, what about, people wanting to boycott, but others are saying, what's the point of a boycott? It's not as if the big wigs, people at the very top, are going to feel it. So what's the point of not giving your money? And McCarley, for his part, has said he's not going to go out and encourage people to boycott, but he understands the sentiment and appreciates the support. But he also added, in the end, for these big wigs, for these big executives, whoever is at the very top, what's important to them is always the bottom line. So if you want to go down that route, he encouraged people to, when they hit the unsubscribe button and they see the survey that says, we're sorry you're going, can you tell us why you're canceling your subscription? He's encouraging people to fill it in and tell them why. You stand with SAG. You stand with the union. Hashtag just a conversation. Or just a meeting. That's it. Just a meeting. Now I want to. Now that's the part that stuck out in the skim. I want to read it a little bit more. Life kind of gets in the way of you doing these type of things. So maybe that's a space heater chat later on. But that's just there. Oh, coming back to the Bayonetta thing, since that came up, right, Kevin, right, Amy.
Oh yeah.
The other thing in that article that stuck out was the response, specifically from what's his name, Hideki Kamiya. And what is Kamiya's role again? The executive director. I know he's the head, but who the hell does he think he is with that type of response?
Isn't he a co-founder?
I guess. He's
think
big,
so,
I guess. That is a hell of a response. What the blank type of response is that? What the fuck type of response is that?
An indignant one.
I mean,
you know, the
what do I mean, I'm kind of I mean, that is okay.
This
you go first.
Yeah, go.
Go ahead, Kevin, because I can I wasn't. It's not as if I was ever going to buy Bayonetta. I'm not really a fan. I was never a fan to start. Well, boy, I feel like boycotting just based on that dickish response.
So, based on the random discourse I've seen on Twitter, it's apparently an open secret that Hideki Kamiya is a jackass. And people are also speculating that there must be something more to this, in that maybe they didn't want to bring her back, so they purposely gave her an insulting offer. Because Jennifer Hale is now the new voice of Bayonetta, and she is an established voice actress, and people are thinking that there's no way she would have taken $4,000.
Yeah, that's part of the story.
That's the thing. That's why people are thinking there must be something going on behind the scenes, or maybe one person hates the other. Like, we don't know. Nothing has come out yet in that regard.
Well, at least a little bit more from that side of the story. Helena Taylor has, I think, said plenty. So I guess we're gonna see what type of, I really want to. I'd be curious to hear any more on that story. It's juicy enough.
So, if you haven't heard, Kamiya, previous to, well, not previous, but I would say on Twitter he's most famous for being the blocked guy.
Oh yes, I remember this
where
now.
Yeah,
after any single tweet, whether it's "Hey, I love your game" or "I hate your game" or "Here's an essay about something related to what you were talking about," he would respond with variations of "Thanks, blocked," or "This is the best comment I've ever heard," blocked. So like, yeah, I mean, he thinks very highly of himself. I think clearly. I get the impression that he likes being a troll. He said very awkward things regarding even Bayonetta itself, compared to some of the other creators and on the series who have been really sort of, introspective and like, interesting, like the character designers and such. So like his response doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, not that I knew who this guy was.
Neither did I. To be honest, it's I'm a bit conflicted because I do have Bayonetta 3 pre-ordered. I actually haven't played much of the games, but I pre-ordered the limited Bayonetta 1 re-release for the Switch as well. Because I played a little bit of it back in the PS3, Xbox 360 era at a friend's house.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I mean, this like there's a whole bunch of angles we can take to the whole dubbing thing now, right? Great story though. Curious to see more. I'm curious to like how much legs this has.
It's interesting compared to a lot of other sort of recast controversies in the past because, unless it's something, like Brawley and Edward's voice actor, it's rarely a situation where one character or a few characters get recast. It's usually entire casts. So I think, most, maybe famously with Pokemon and Sonic the Hedgehog, where they switch studios. So they're like, yeah, we don't want to pay anyone except for Mike Pollock in the case of Sonic to come back. So we're going to just recast almost everyone. In both cases, I think weirdly one voice actor remained while the others were switched. So like and with those cases, like, and I think even probably with the mob case, voice actors tend to be not very like petty. Like Veronica Taylor has been, I think, really, supportive, at least in how she speaks, of Sarah Natochenny, I believe is how you pronounce her last name. The new voice of Ash, there doesn't seem to be ill will.
Yeah,
All the
I mean that's not.
yeah.
Sorry, I was about to say I'm not totally sure that sentiment is with Miss
Oh yeah,
Helena Taylor.
this is I think this is a little bit of a new case because this does seem like, as you were saying, like something more is going on in the background, versus just like a company switching studios or things like that. Like this does seem different. Both stories seem a little bit different, but especially the Bayonetta one.
Mm-hmm. I think there's more. I think there's more. What's the word I'm looking for? Anger there. I think there's a little bit more. Not amicable.
Yeah.
That's for sure. It certainly sounds more contentious. What's the word? Give me what would be the opposite of amicable here? I know the word is on the tip of my tongue.
I keep wanting to think venomous.
Contentious. Right? Oh, maybe I can Google that right now. Maybe I will.
It is interesting, like just taking it back to what Kevin was
antagonistic,
saying.
Unfriendly, hostile. Yeah, okay.
What Kevin was saying last episode, it's such an interesting contrast with how Japan generally handles things, where like unless someone has a long-term illness or dies, they're pretty much like the character, like they're linked to the character for life.
Oh,
versus
yeah, well,
like,
tell that to Yui Horie and Toru Honda.
For the most part, but I mean, like in general, we've had like 5 Sonics, 3 Marios, like 3 or 4 Gokus. Like, it's interesting that like how many Spider-Mans have we had? Like, it's interesting. Like how many Batmans? I can probably, like, I can't name multiple animated Batmans off my head. Well, I can, but like that it is a different reverence, I think, and a different. I mean, to be fair, I think American media, like, we have different interpretations, multiverse, if you want to take like on a internal scale, which allows for the different casting versus like anime manga doesn't do that multiverse thing as often or that different interpretations. Like there's no like ultimate Dragon Ball or the Earth 2 Card Captor. Well, there is Earth 2 Card Captors, I guess. Bad example. There's no like Earth Zero, Berserk, or Fruits Baskets or things like that.
Although I do feel like that sentiment is slowly changing in Japan. It's not as ironclad as it used to be in terms of keeping the original cast. I still think it's more often than not that they'll keep it, but it used to be all but like, yes, they are going to be that person until they die, or they're just too old. But like in the case of Fruits Basket, the whole cast was changed in Japan,
and I think that was Takeya's personal request.
Yes, that was Natsuki Takeya's mandate. Yes,
she wanted to distance herself from any form, in every possible form from the first anime.
Yeah, because there were those rumors that her and Nakitaro Daichi didn't agree with the direction of the anime.
It's more than just a rumor. Somebody update me.
And about a third.
Sorry.
I was just going to say about a third of Shaman King in both English and Japanese were changed as well.
Okay.
And I know D. Greyman, when they made that new season after several years, I believe that cast had changed too, and on the Japanese side. And also with the upcoming Rurouni Kenshin anime, I believe that's a new cast too.
It is. And that was a big part of the, they were interviewed as part of Aniplex Fest. But now that you brought up the, Japan comparison, and on the topic of reverence and revering Japanese seiyuu, how close are Japanese seiyuu to being mainstream celebrity-like personalities in comparison to North American voice actors? Because remember, I said, okay, where are we further? How far along are we in terms of acting? In terms of the impressions of actors, like firmly putting down roots in North America. Voice actors probably don't have that type of rootedness that stage actors, television actors, movie actors may have in North America. But now that you've brought it up, what type of roots do Japanese seiyuu have when it comes to mainstream Japanese entertainment there? I think because if I'm to use that thinking, I'm thinking at the very least that's a little further along, but the hell do I know?
That's my impression as well, that it's a little further along, because
at least enough to notice.
Because there are, well, in most cases, it seems like there's that emphasis of being that triple threat, that you need to be able to sing, and you need to be able to perform, and you need to be able to possibly dance, depending on which avenue you take.
You have to have a degree of stage presence, in-person stage presence.
And sometimes one avenue takes off better than the other. So one example would be Nana Mizuki, who I believe started as a voice actor, but is now more known as a singer, because she now has an established music career and will perform at Budokan and other big venues in Japan.
The name that comes to mind for me, and this isn't anime related,
Gact?
No.
Because Gact, interestingly enough, if I'm remembering this correctly, Gact became a big personality TV show person as well.
Oh yeah. I don't doubt that. See, I was thinking Aki Shibuya, who you probably don't know, but she was an actress. I think she was in The Grudge. And then over the last 10 years, she became more of a TV presenter on NHK World. Right now, to the point she is now their lead news anchor for their 7 p.m. program, Newsroom Tokyo. Or 8 p.m. program. She still maintains a presence. I think she still does theater. She still does theater in her spare time. So you have these multi-talented triple threat type characters who dabble in a bunch of other things and probably talk about a bunch of other, other issues too. But there's a degree of but whereas our performers here have a degree of one dimension, single dimension talent to them.
So I would take issue with that quite intensely.
Okay, let's hear. Okay,
so that is how these people have been funneled. I don't think it's necessarily what their talents like. I don't think it's evident of what their entire talents are.
Okay, yeah, I think I was about to get to this part of it.
And I think that
factory, the idol, maybe an idol factory type thing. Is this what you're getting at, or is this
a little bit? But like in North America, keep in mind there is Hollywood as this top of the kingdom type of thing where you have, you are a Hollywood actor, you're on movies. This is the most expensive, famous you can get. There's nothing above it. And then below that is prestige TV. And then there's regular TV. And then below that, like somewhere there's the place where cartoon voice actors and streaming only, like YouTube type streamers might exist.
Or theater even.
Yeah, well, theater probably even below that. Like, who knows, like, the name of any, like, I guess some, but like, theater only actors, they're far less known in North America. The entire system is different in Japan, where like they don't have a Hollywood equivalent. Like musicians can be just as famous as a voice actor, can be just as famous as a movie actor. Like, maybe not exactly, but it feels like there's less of a steep drop there. And so many North American voice actors are incredibly talented actors or singers or theater actors, but maybe they're not conventionally attractive enough, so are incredibly, body image focused, cis white, let's get the prettiest air quotes people possible onto the big screen. Everything is surrounded about that. So,
I mean, that's not Chris Pratt's fault.
No, it's not. But like, there is more opportunities for voice actors if you are someone not traditionally attractive or a different race, at least, traditionally. Things are changing and things are shifting so much. Like if you think about like the popularity of streamers and that, and idols and VTubers, like things are getting disrupted. But like, North American voice actors, oftentimes they are just as talented actors as these celebrities. It's just we have such a weird celebrity culture in North America where it's box office over talent a lot of the time. So if you are attractive and charismatic, it doesn't matter how good of an actor, or you can be a good actor, but it doesn't it will be an advantage. And this trickles down the line where like that's still a factor in TV and prestige TV. And then you go further down the line to animation or to theater acting or audiobook acting, where like it doesn't, the looks and the sort of generic or like general charisma looks and that sort of thing, it doesn't matter as much.
Yeah, I guess. Okay. I mean, I think it just sounds like it's less factory and more East-West.
Yeah.
Culture. Right? The be-all and end-all is Hollywood. In the West. Whereas in, say, in a lot of Asia and Japan, what's that be-all, end-all? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, there isn't a be all end all unless you want to count Hollywood, where you have all these,
well, in Asia as well,
Americans, right? So, but like as far as like their domestic, products, like there might be some level of reverence and like pedestal placement of cinematic actors, but I don't think it's as dramatic as it is here.
Okay. But still leads to, when it comes down to it, it's still voice actors for us. Like, I mean, that's part of our conversation. That's the conversation we've been having here. It's, I mean, where to go with next? That's the thing, right? What are we aiming at? And what does, like, obviously when we talk anime, we always have to refer to Japan as well. And this is not to say what goes on in Japan is any better. There's a different type of bad going on there.
It's just
because I think I think more people are going poor there, or have to be more creative, and then but some have more creative ways to be able to make income too. We talked about we said voice actors doing more public appearances that are probably more, part of the normal culture there. The meet and greets, the handshake stuff.
And if you think about idols, like there's so many restrictions, like you can't date, you have to go to different places alone,
and they can't associate and have. Yeah, I get that, and that's why maybe the factory isn't all that either.
I think it's such a big, just cultural difference,
and a different type of exploitation.
Yeah.
But I don't know what else to add to this right now, aside from I should read that article, and then we'll continue from there. Oh, and and on the topic of recasting, I'm pretty sure Urusei Yatsura was recasted as well. Although I think some of the original voices from it are back into it too, just as different characters now. Although I'll have to look that up. And for what it's worth, in terms of boycotting or canceling the Crunchyroll subscription, I mean, I like mine. I know it'll renew sometime in December. I know that I was charged roughly $70 for an entire year last year. Have no clue if that'll be the case when it's up for renewal later. Be nice, but just wouldn't shock me if it goes up. But that's my outlet. Get the feeling my $2, and then I get the feeling my $2 will go into a Shonen Jump subscription soon too. After I'm done with the Disney one. Okay. I don't know. As I said, is there anything else we want to add to this, or should we just move on? Because we're about 80 some odd minutes in. I think this is just a frustrating thing to read about overall.
What if we take a break, come back, or something fun?
Well, let's get to it now. Actually, we don't really do breaks anymore, right? As we tape.
I think he just meant break into something different.
Okay.
Segue.
Way to go. Okay.
Segue off a cliff.
Let's go into some of this. Do we want? Okay, I saw some of the bullets you just put up, Kevin. Do you want to acknowledge any one of these? Hunter x Hunter, Card Captor Sakura, clear card manga ending in the 14th volume.
They can end something. Well, not that they could never end something, but yeah.
Just decide to end something, yeah.
It looks like they're ending it, which is fine. The rumor is that they will resume Holic Ray. So
okay.
I'm looking forward to that if it happens.
See, it's just interesting to me, Clear Card came out, I think the anime series came out back in 2018, I believe, if memory serves me right.
Okay.
And it ended basically on a cliffhanger.
Okay.
Sorry, that's a bit of a spoiler, isn't it?
Yeah, whatever.
But But like you just knew there was more. Like the story had, like you were wondering if they would add more to that story. And to this point, they haven't. And I'm not anticipating it because they want you to buy the manga. I would if I had space for it, or if I would if I had a guarantee my sister wouldn't steal it later on, as she has with a lot of my other collection. Anyway.
Let's see. I would say,
or should we really get Amy going again? Or do we want to acknowledge the whole Tokyo Olympics corruption thing since it took down a few executives from Kadokawa?
What?
Or do you think that's more for James?
Corruption at the Olympics?
Yeah. Sarcasm there. I mean, I can't find a direct anime link to this one. It's just fascinating. That I mean, with the Olympics is a fascinating thing. Obviously, we've talked at length about it. Had fun with it, Mo, last year when we talked after the opening ceremonies.
I'm just flabbergasted. Corruption?
Sure, you are.
You told me FIFA's corrupted?
Well, it's 1 and 1A, right? I mean, does the president of FIFA make the president of the IOC look like the Pope, or is it the other way around?
I mean, neither. I don't know.
It's a good thing that here in Canada we have Hockey Canada to. Oh no.
Yeah. So let's there's our say it ain't so moment here in Canada, right? Oh, anyway, maybe I'll save that for another time because there's another one that just was hilarious to talk about. A couple of days ago, I saw this meme, or yeah, I guess a meme, maybe it might be the word, on Facebook. But I found out it was a link to a longer article. So Anime Underground put up a meme with a couple pictures from Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood with the caption, "Best starter anime? Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is one of the most beloved series in anime history. According to many fans, it's also a perfect gateway anime for those who aren't big into the medium. With an incredible story, cool action sequences, and lovable characters, it's hard not to argue that it's the perfect starter anime for newbies. The only problem with Full FMAB being your first anime is that it might ruin other series for you." It wasn't the now the suggestion is fine. Because I think that and the link leads to a discussion or a list or whatever Amy is about to call it of anime, a list of anime for beginners, and I think lists in the neighborhood of 50 some odd titles. Right. On that list, My Hero Academia, One Punch Man, Naruto, and then there are some titles that I don't personally recognize. Cowboy Bebop's number 12 on this list. Fairy Tail, Tokyo Ghoul, Code Geass, Erased. I'm just skimming through the list now. Maid-sama, Food Wars, the original Kenshin, Champloo, Trigun.
I'm just surprised they don't have the actual correct anime on there.
In what sense?
I mean, everyone knows the best first anime is Eye Shield 21, right?
Sure, could be.
I mean, you can't go any better than that, right?
Mm-hmm. Good old Eye Shield.
But yeah, some of these, looking at the list, there are titles that look interesting, but I'd never heard of. A lot of it came out probably during the Purgatory years. So, I mean, if nothing else, it's a discussion. The bit in that meme I just showed you, or just read out, is the last sentence. The only problem with blank being your first anime is that it might ruin other series for you. And it...
Hence why Eye Shield.
It harkened back to an old conversation I had with Neil's roommate, Simon, many years ago. And he just said, I can't think of any other anime as great. And this was like in the late 90s, early aughts. I can't think of any other anime as great because they're all going to suck to me, mainly because Cowboy Bebop ruined it for me. And I thought, that's what this comment reminded me of. And it just had me thinking. But Full Metal Alchemist? Really? You think that's the one that could ruin it for people? Okay, do you want to say anything, Amy, right now, or do you want me to just continue?
I'm ready to be unleashed at any moment, whenever you...
That's why I'm wondering
whatever you want
to
that
be
to
unleashed
happen.
right now. It's... Obviously, to me, it's subjective. Sometimes I look at people and, as I get to know people and they know I'm an anime fan, they'll ask me, okay, can you recommend something? And what I end up recommending it changes depending on what I know of that person and what I know they like.
Yeah, because that's rational.
Right? Like to a former colleague when I worked at the vaccine clinics here in the West End, I recommended, knowing about her wanting to spend a little bit more time with her daughter and knowing she had Netflix, I actually recommended Demon Slayer to her. And she was and after I knew she watched a couple episodes, she actually liked the story. She didn't come across to me as somebody who could get into it. And she even tried to pull her daughter into watch, but the daughter was too cool for that. But she actually told me she really liked the story. Others I might recommend something like Great Pretender because maybe they were into something like Now You See Me or the Ocean's 11. But it really, it's one of those mileage varies type things. Okay, change her off, Amy.
Okay, yeah. So, you have the, I was going to say correct approach, but you have an approach that I think is far more healthy than the idea of something like Full Metal Alchemist or Cowboy Bebop ruining all other anime for you. That is ridiculous.
I think it's
what comic book would you recommend to someone trying to get into comic books? Oh, I don't know. How about, the Holocaust analog of Mouse, or the fun, all ages adventure, like fantasy adventure of Bone, or you have, something like Neil Gaiman's Sandman, so psychological that crosses over a little bit into superhero. Like, the fact that people are still trying to group anime all together in 2022 is ridiculous. Now, I will first of all, yeah, calling that thing a list is very charitable. Second of all, the link to that list says Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Number one on that list is the regular Full Metal Alchemist, or the pre-Brotherhood anime series that diverges from the manga, which I would actually agree is a better introduction, because Brotherhood actually rushes through the first couple arcs.
Yes.
Because they assume everyone has already watched it in the first anime or read the manga, so Brotherhood being the best intro, I don't know about that for that one reason.
Forget it being the best into anime. It might be it may not be even number one for Full Metal Alchemist. Is that what you're getting?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
yes.
The original Full Metal Alchemist anime probably is better. Is it a better series narratively? Maybe not, but it's probably an easier access point.
It was a victim of the times.
Yeah. And it diverges in an interesting way. People disagree, but I think the weird real world stuff at the end is kind of cool. It's silly. But anyways, so like the one thing I will give Full Metal Alchemist is, I like the series, is that its genre is kind of interestingly vague. Like, it is fantasy, but it's grounded enough that I think it can be accessible for people who aren't into fantasy or science fiction. There's just enough of it. So like, it's kind of like Lost in that way, right? Like it's a genre fiction, but there's some stuff there that could be attractive to, non-genre people. And that's the intended, attraction to Cowboy Bebop too, right? But Cowboy Bebop is this very specific, like noir space western that, like, sure, if your favorite other show is Firefly, maybe Cowboy Bebop, and if the only thing you like is Firefly, yeah, maybe Cowboy Bebop ruin all other anime for you. But like, how is Cowboy Bebop gonna ruin Sergeant Frog or Wandering Sun or like Great Pretender, or maybe Great Pretender, but like, Gundam or Code Geass? Like, there are so many like different genres. Like, I know this is like the most repeated, like, early anime lecture introduction, but it's just Japanese animation. Like, it's such a broad category.
I know it's not a genre, it's a medium.
Yeah, and like, looking at that list, like, recency biased much. Like, I'm sure, Demon Slayer and One Punch Man, I'm sure they're great. I've seen One Punch Man technically, but like, those being, like, especially Demon Slayer being at number 2, like, that is just recency bias. Like, again, I haven't seen it. I've seen animated clips. Beautiful, sure. But like, as an intro to like anime, so with Demon Slayer, it is based on, like, there's some Japanese myths and legends there. So I will sort of, again, give it credit. Oh, good, you're introducing, Japanese culture and legends into things. But if you don't like shonen action, then Gegege no Kitaro is going to be a better introduction to the same subject matter. If you'd rather a slice of life kind of comedy, there's decades of different versions of that for you to watch. Or if you're a kid, Yokai Watch is going to be a better introduction to that topic. Yeah, so like, the idea of this list pisses me off. The sentiment of a series ruining other anime as a whole for you is very frustrating for me. What a silly list. Like, some of the things that are on that, like, is like, sure, yeah, introduce that to someone and they probably will never watch another animated series again. Like, if they're not into it, right?
That's a bullet right there, right?
But like,
silver bullet.
If you have, like, let's bring up this stupid list. Like, if you have no interest in some of these series, then it's not going to, like, you're going to be like pulled away from anime. So okay, Death Note is on the list at number 3. I'll give you that. Like, that's probably a good one if you're into murder mystery thrillers, and haven't seen an animated series before, and you think, oh, I didn't know you could have an animated murder thriller, or supernatural as well. That sounds cool. Yeah, I will watch that. Perfect. If you're into that. If you love Friends or Seinfeld, Death Note isn't going to be the one for you. Something like Osamatsu-san is going to be what you should be introduced. Hunter x Hunter, like, Hunter x Hunter and something like My Hero Academia as 4 and 5, if you're not into, like, bouncy, fun, like, shonen action, not a great choice. Like, Attack on Titan, a little bit recency bias as well. Assassination Classroom, I'm impressed, is at 9. I love it. But again, if you don't have interest in, like, this, like, again, kind of shonen action show with this, like, backdrop of, like, school. And then Spirited Away is on here for some reason. Like, Ghibli movies, I think, should be a different category. How many other Ghibli movies are on here? Why does it take so long to get more of them? One Piece and Fairy Tail, yeah, introduce 1,000 episode series for your friend and watch them cry. Like, I can go on and on, but, like, there's some ridiculous stuff here. Dragon Ball Z is a non-anime fan. Like, maybe if the person is 9, that would be great.
Go from Dragon Ball to Naruto right there.
Yeah, I mean, Trigun, I think, should be higher up on the list. Like,
no, that's a good. I had fun with that one. And going back to Simon, he thought very well of it. But I didn't. But I don't remember at the time revisiting his line.
And is ReZero really the first isekai on this list? Like, that's, isekai has a whole other discussion, but like, isekai.
No, I think it was Sword Art that was first.
Oh, okay. I guess my mind blocked it out of that. Sailor Moon at 37 seems a bit low. The fact that Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon is like above some other things, like above Gurren Lagann. Like Gurren Lagann has problems with fan service. It's above Hellsing. It's above Promised Neverland. That's a great one for like someone who has trouble with some of the things that push people away from anime. Log Horizon at 47, I think if you're going to introduce someone into the concept of isekai, that's actually the best. Case Closed at 50, that's another one I think people would actually be interested in if you weren't into anime or animation in general. Like, this list is silly.
But also myself. A super long series in its own right.
Yeah, but it's more episodic, right? So, like, that's an advantage Detective Conan has. You could show them episode 285 or episode 5, and there probably wouldn't be a huge difference, like, except for maybe the animation quality.
It's why I sometimes recommend Gintama, depending on the person.
Gintama's, like, a funny,
because it's also very, like, episodic as well, for the most part.
The problem with Gintama, though, is that a lot of its humor is derived from knowledge of animes and specifically shonen anime tropes. Like, not all of it, but, a good 30% of the humor is there. And I think that's another thing to consider with introducing anime to people, is that, this is a weird thing to say, how either Japanese or how anime is the anime series that you're recommending.
Indeed.
There are certain series that are filled with either tropes or unfortunate things like fan service or an overuse of things like the sweat drops or like, the different eye expressions. Or there are things that are more grounded that are probably going to turn some people off. Like, who are you recommending this to? Like, I can't believe there's such like a blanket statement in this year of trying to introduce someone to anime as a thing. Spirited Away being the only Ghibli movie on here, like, what is going on? Like, again, calling this a list.
It's a fan Mononoke. Like, what?
It's a fan-made list. All this list is a popularity contest where like a couple hundred people on a Discord say, "Hey, they didn't vote Hunter x Hunter high enough. Let's all click the button 100 times." Yeah, okay.
That happens with the My Anime List top 100 as well as even the ANN one.
Yeah,
because people will constantly fight to make sure Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is the top ranked anime. Because I remember seeing, I remember when Your Name came out, and sometimes I check those lists just out of pure curiosity, and I noticed like Your Name was creeping up higher and higher because of recency bias. It's a good film, but recency bias plays into this, and it got very close. It got into like the top 3 or 2, even I think it even got to number 2, or maybe it did get to number 1. I didn't check every day, but I remember like seeing how eventually Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood would be back at number 1, and I wonder why that's the case.
Again, it's aesthetically this cool, like, soft steampunk thing. Like, to some degree I get the 2 FMAs being high up on the list, but like it's not going to appeal to everyone. Like, I guess, there's some degree of its popularity has shown that it can appeal to a large amount of people. Sure, but that doesn't mean that everyone's going to like it.
And the Full Metal Alchemist fans are passionate as well because they want to make sure their show is number 1.
Why do you think He Who Must Not Be Named? Why do you think He Who Must Not Be Named has any sort of fans and energy left? Like, it's because of Full Metal Alchemist. This would not. He wouldn't be as powerful just because of Host Club. As much as I love Host Club.
Okay. Oh, there's your.
Rant's
over, right? Rant's over, right?
It's
Host Club would be a good series.
I mean, host club would be interesting. Kevin?
Oh, I was just saying how it took until number 27 for a title traditionally targeted to girls was on the list with Maid Sama. Inuyasha's technically shonen, technically targeted to boys in Japan, but despite having a cross gender interests, like besides both, all genders enjoying that one, and like I guess it just shows also like how much like Cowboy Bebop and Spirited Away have endured for them to be so high up. Origami, I think, is a very intriguing choice at 13 because it does have its strong emotional moments, especially in season 2. Ironically enough, because season 2 is technically its own series, so to speak. But yeah, I was like, I don't think all these Shonen Jump series being so high up is really warranted.
No.
I do think One Piece should be a bit higher because I actually am of the opinion that One Piece is a safer title to introduce to people because it's more lighthearted in the beginning. Because I'm always of the opinion that if people really want to catch up, they will. They'll make the effort. I've seen plenty of people get caught up in it. Other intriguing titles listed.
I want to give more thought after because you. Okay, go ahead.
What was it? I saw Saber Marionette J further down the list.
Wow, there's a name, and has that been re-released? By the way,
no.
To this stage, I don't think so. Boy, I think whoever bought that off of me from at the Nomanoichi some years back got a deal.
See, for me, it ends at number 80. I guess without pressing the next page. So Saber Marionette J is 79. Mazinger Z 77. Slayers is 76.
See, Slayers is interesting because that's had its own enduring power.
Do you like Dungeons and Dragons? Slayers is probably going to be a better choice for you than Gundam Seed Destiny. Like, come on. Like, is Made in the Abyss on this list?
I don't think I saw it.
Because, and probably one of the few, well, aside from Urusei Yatsura, the only other reason to want to subscribe to HiDive.
But like that's another one where I think that like it's cerebral and kind of like, for lack of a better word, like literary, like intellectual enough that like I think, people who haven't seen anime, like that might intrigue people. Like it's scary, it's sad, but yeah, okay.
There's something.
I can go off on this list like 100 times. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Baccano is I always like to recommend Baccano.
And you know what? Even
it's a good show.
Even Durara, I'd say, is okay. Like, I think Baccano is better. But, like, I think, that Durara would be a good second. Like, oh, did you like Baccano? Here's a bit of a weirder one. Watch the first season, see what you think. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now, that would be a cool list. What are the best second anime series to show people? I think that is a more fascinating list. Like, how do you...
follow up?
Yeah, if you like a series, what is a series that would keep people interested in the medium or like the sort of surrounding genre? So like anime sci-fi or anime fantasy, like what are good second ones?
There's a part of me that from my own personal standpoint would want to have that discussion. I'm wondering, I think though, it's just that for others, the worry is always keeping them like just getting into the medium in the first place. I think it's kind of like saying it takes more work to keep your customers than to gain new ones or something like that. or the type of work you put in to gain new customers and the type of work you put in to keep your current customers.
Ooh, Black Lagoon's on this list at 53.
Anyway. Mo?
Yes.
Okay, give me a thought. Since the other two have dominated this part.
It's all good. So, movie versus TV show. That's my big concern.
Oh yeah, because you're more the movie guy, right?
The movie. Like I see Akira on this list, so it's like, do I recommend that or One Piece? You know.
So some of it is based on, okay, what can you sit down to watch?
Exactly.
And how long can you sit down to watch? Well, that's actually a fair statement too. I mean, he just threw another thought into that. It's less it may not be necessarily based on a television series. It could be just a feature.
Like, how much does this person like watching TV or movies in the first place? Like, if they don't recommend an OVA or a movie or a 13-episode series, like, there are so many factors.
I feel like you have to fill out a questionnaire before giving us there. No, figure out the job.
Well, that's why I become familiar with who's with my with people who've asked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
I do think that the second sort of the follow-up question is interesting because, like, I was thinking about like series or like a situation where like someone has introduced me with something to something, I liked it, but then I never followed through. And the only thing I could think of was someone, like, kind of a weird situation of like, there's echoes. I mentioned I was into comics, and someone in a class I was taking said, "Oh, have you read 30 Days of Night?" And like, previously I'm reading manga and superheroes and Bone, and maybe the most intense I've read has been Sandman and Swamp Thing at this point. They're like, "Oh, I'll give you 30 Days of Night. I'll just give you my like collector's box. I've read it." So I'm like, "Oh, thank you." So I'm reading this kind of dark, isolation-y vampire story, and I thought it was great, amazing, cool. I'm reading a horror comic that's fairly modern, but it's not a genre I love. Like, I don't want to read more horror comics. I'm not particularly like engaged with this particular author.
Kind of, once again, Junji Ito.
Yeah, like, it was great. I enjoyed reading it, but like, Junji Ito, I think, is different. I'd be curious about reading more from him. But like, as far as like Western vampire horror comics, like, I don't want to read more of them. If I encounter one that has an interesting premise, sure. But like, I'm done otherwise. So it's interesting. Like, are you trying to introduce like a partner into anime that you like, or a really close friend, where you actually do want them to watch multiple things? Or are you fine if they're just like, "Oh yeah, that was good. No more for me, please." Like,
you know what? In all of this discussion and maybe we should start ending the episode because we're almost the 2-hour mark. No, it was great. I mean, I loved what it was all. Just loved the thought, the whole thought. But just to distill it for me now, I might just take YouTuber Misinformed's advice on recommendations. Just look at the pictures and figure out which one's the best girl. Mo might get that reference.
I mean,
there. Got 'em. They're done. I think we should just. That's probably the way. At a point, maybe the only way I could do it. But maybe this is also the reason I'll keep the Crunchyroll account too. There's just a lot. And maybe that's why, at the very least, I'll think about the HiDive subscription, and more than likely put my toonie towards Shonen Jump, or 250 or whatever it is. Before we go tonight, I did want to end off on, and this is kind of a swerve on you guys, because I'm calling an audible just to make one final story. And I did want to end off on a slightly melancholy note. There is a follow-up, or within the last couple days, a follow-up on the death of Kazuki Takahashi came out, the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh!
You mean the hero?
Yeah, it's just everyone just said there's a few further notes on the death of the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh! Within the last couple days, the Japan Coast Guard confirmed a report from the U.S. military that Takahashi died a hero because he was trying to help rescue a family caught in off the coast of Okinawa in some rough waters back on July 4th. And we acknowledged his death back then, I think at Anime North.
Mm-hmm.
And it was tragic. And I just thought, I want to follow up when I read this, and I just want to acknowledge it here. Right? Yeah, he drowned. Died a hero, dude. And I know there's I'm skimming through some of the latest news on that. But that's just I'm just tip my hat to him. If this is the story behind the circumstances of his death. So I just thought I'd acknowledge that now before we end off tonight.
It definitely tracks with other stories that came out following his death. Like, it's still a tragedy from what happened, but yeah, like I heard that news report as well, and it's like kind of or definitely like inspirational, even if sad, if a sad end.
It's a sad end, but yeah, you just come across thinking this was a good man. Not to say we really knew him, but that just sounded like a good man. Anyway, well, as I said, this is half our quota for October. Hopefully, we'll get to get the second thing in before Halloween. And for reference, I'm doing the candy at my parents' place this year. I have time to do it.
Yeah, you gotta watch out for those rainbow candies, man.
Well, tell me more about them as we go off the air. There's probably something else I should be aware of. But in any event, that's almost all we got. I know. Well, thanks for being able to make some time, Amy. I know you have to get ready for. I know you're going to be a bit busy again.
Yep, as always.
As always, but aren't we all? Right? Aren't we all? And hopefully, when James hears this, which he probably won't, but I'm pretty sure he'll have something to say anyway when he finds out what we talked about.
We'll probably talk about like some of the other like announcements that happened in the past 2 weeks too.
Yes, you know what? I wish you're right. New York Anime New York City Comic Con. Those came and went, didn't they?
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot all about that.
Yeah, Viz announced some stuff. 7Seas announced some stuff before and after it. Yen Press announced some stuff.
And I'm looking through.
Announced some stuff. Not at the con, but they just announced some stuff recently.
And if we're boycotting anything, it should be TwitchCon.
Oh yeah, well, that's another story altogether. Assuming is it because of somebody breaking their back in two places?
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
What? Oh my god.
We'll talk about that off the air. But if you want in on the conversation as it was tonight, you can contact us still. AnimeRoundtable@gmail.com, at AnimeRoundtable, AnimeRoundtable.com. Any one of those will be updated, hopefully soon. And we're hoping by the end of the year to add something more visual on our Twitch channel. Oops. Twitch.tv/Anime Roundtable and the YouTube channel sooner or later. As for the podcast side, please leave us a review if you can on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and whatever else you would get your podcasts on. Because give us a like. A good review does help us. Right, Kevin?
Yes, it does.
Yes. And as we mentioned, we had been trying to do things weekly or bi-weekly. We've tamped down our expectations and tried to provide at least more than one thing a month, because life does get in the way sometimes. So regardless, you don't have to wait, but in any event, give us a subscribe, a like, or a follow on any of the platforms we're on, so that you don't have to constantly keep checking, and you'll be notified whenever we put up something new. Also, if you have a Spotify account, please check out our Anime Roundtable playlist for a list of music based on the things we bring up on this show. The theme song is entitled Fubuki Snowstorm by Piko Misaki, which is the title track of her current album. You can check out more of her music at picoinfinity.com or on Facebook at Pico Zen Music. So that's it. Until next time, thanks for listening. Good night from Toronto, and join us again for episode 73 of the Anime Roundtable.